KFIZ News Time, 8:08. Our KFIZ Meadows of Fond du Lac Weather Center forecast. Sunshine today, a high of 81, and light west winds at about 5 miles per hour. Skies will be partly cloudy tonight with a low of 63. For tomorrow, a mix of sunshine and clouds, 40% chance for some showers or thunderstorms in the afternoon, a high of 79. Mostly cloudy tomorrow night, low of 62. And then as we focus on EAA next week up in Oshkosh, sunshine on Monday, 20% chance for some afternoon showers or storms, high of 82. Tuesday, we see a 40% chance for some showers or storms in the afternoon with a high of 83. Even better chance for some showers and storms Wednesday. They're talking a 60% chance right now with a high of 79. Thursday, we see a 20% chance for some showers and storms with a high near 80. Friday, sunshine and a high of 83. Currently, with some sunshine, 68 degrees in the shadow of the lighthouse of the AirTech Heating Studios. News Talk 1450, KFIZ, and 100.7 FM. Weather brought to us by the Meadows of Fond du Lac. Live the good life. KFIZ News Time, 8:10. This is Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Phone lines are open for your lawn, garden, landscaping questions. All you need to do is call 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. You can also email the program with a question. That address is kfizstudio@gmail.com. As we welcome in Ron Rademann from Rademann Stone and Landscape Company, and Master Gardener Carol is in studio. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's been a really nice week here, especially the last, well, the day the fair started, it seemed to all get a lot better. The humidity dropped and the temperatures moderated a little bit, and so, yeah, they hit it pretty good this week for picking the fair. They're going to have...
Historically, it would be the other way, though.
Right?
Yeah.
Usually it's hot,
bad
humid,
weather.
stormy.
Yes.
And they've been very blessed. They had a good stretch last year, too. I think one rainy day, otherwise fairly comfortable. This week has just been absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, it's, and now it's kind of... It's kind of swinging the other way just a little bit. We had a lot of warm temperatures leading up to, last weekend was hot yet, and through Monday and Tuesday, and we didn't really get much moisture. Or the couple times we did, it poured hard in certain areas, and so I actually got a couple calls this week from people, and they had planted trees either last fall or earlier this spring, and they were a little nervous because their tree was dropping a few yellow leaves or showing some yellow leaves, and they go, well, am I watering it? I haven't watered it because it's been raining too much. Is it still too much moisture, too much rain, too much water? And I go, actually, it's drying out now. And it's kind of, I always say plants have a short memory, and they don't remember what it was like 3 weeks ago. It was wet, and but now it's swinging the other way. It's been dry, so their memory now is we need water. So even though in the lawns kind of, we've these couple showers that we did have, it kind of kept the lawns green. So it's a little deceptive, but it hasn't, and it worked okay in your garden and on your perennials and things like that. But it's, as we were doing some digging this past week in the nursery, we're starting to dig evergreens right now again. And so it's evergreen transplanting season. So anyway, as we've been transplanting some evergreens this past week, I was kind of actually surprised how dry it was down below. Once you get down past those first 2-3 inches, which is kind of where this past weekend's thunderstorms kind of watered it just a little bit. but that 2 or 3 tenths that we got in that 15 minutes or hour rain, it didn't soak down much, and it's dry once you get down 18 inches or 2 feet down. Now, that being said, the evergreens don't grow well in swampy lowland areas, so we're not digging in swampy lowland areas. We're digging in higher ground and things like that. As we start the transplanting season, we start at the top of the hill and work our way to the bottom. So, if you've got a lower area in your yard, or if your yard is basically pretty flat, I don't know that you need to run out there and start watering here this afternoon. But be alert to it, because this coming week, we got a little, 40-50% chance of showers tomorrow. But again, I don't know that that's going to help much. So if you planted trees or shrubs or did landscaping, or, they probably will need watering now this week, almost for the first time this whole summer. So give them a good soaking when you are watering, and still be alert. Everybody's site is just a little bit different yet. So, if you have to kind of, when you hear us talking like this or watch us talking on YouTube, you do have to kind of just remember that certain sites are vulnerable right now, and some probably are still plenty moist, but everybody's yard's a little bit different, and everybody's site's a little bit different. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of where we're at as far as that stuff goes. But I'd be alert to it now, and almost put your watering back on your schedule. Water once a week or every 10 days, especially anything that's been newly planted. So I would maybe even hold off now. Like last Saturday, we were talking about fertilizing your lawn yet and putting step 2 or step 3 down. But I think now I would hold off. I would wait it out until we get into, end of August before I'd go on to step 3 now. I'd just wait it out and just see what happens here over the next month or so. Because we're actually in a pretty good trend here yet. The 5 and 10 day outlook, well, you heard the weather just as we were coming on, and it's going to be more in the 70s this coming week, upper 70s.
Carol gave a thumbs up to that.
But so we're not into the 88s and the 92s and the 95s like we can at some years here in the end of July.
For long stretches, yeah. We just had that briefly for a couple of days over the weekend, but it's been back now down to the comfortable level.
Yeah, so we're in. It's been generally a pretty nice. We got off to an early start, so we had a good long spring and generally a pretty nice summer. So always a glitch in there to ruin it for certain people's graduation parties and things like that, but for the most part, pretty good.
Never fails.
Falls under can't have it all.
Yeah.
No, we can't.
So yeah, I would hold off on like lawn fertilizing or anything like that right now. We are kind of getting towards the end of the summer season as far as applying water-soluble fertilizers. The Miracle Grows and the Fertilome products that you mix with water, put in your sprinkling can or mix up in a 5-gallon bucket and water with. You can kind of do that for another week or so, or maybe 2 weeks at the most. But once you get into early August, then you want to hold off on that till next year again too, and let plants kind of naturally hibernate into fall and winter.
Use up what they have left.
Right. Yeah, because when you're fertilizing now, you're giving them a boost for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if you're fertilizing on July 20th, that's working through basically August 10th, if you're fertilizing on August 1st, you're going through to about August 20th, and you really don't want to be fertilizing or kicking plants into gear going into September. You want them to be shutting down in September, kind of just holding their own and waiting it out until fall comes. So anything else to add to that, Carol?
Not really, no.
I was just going to ask, what are we seeing in the gardens this time of year? How are the
Well, I
gardens
can't
doing?
believe the cold crops, the broccoli, the kohlrabi, all of those eggplant, how huge ours are out at the campus
Really?
garden. Yes, they just took off like crazy at the beginning, and they're just huge plants. So,
Well, that early moisture and the warm weather earlier, it got the ground temperatures warmed up a little bit, and a lot of that stuff got started a week or two earlier than normal. Started growing a little earlier as the ground temperatures warmed up, and then of course we got the timely rains, and they're deeper. They've rooted down deep enough now, so even if we get a warm, dry week, they're established. So
We have got a phone call. Let's go to it. Good morning. You are on Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. What's your question for Ron and Carol?
Good morning. Say, I noticed some Japanese beetles on my cherry tree, and I've got, I think I got some stuff called 8 from you.
Mm-hmm.
I can just use my hand pump sprayer and put that on the apple tree. Will that do the job on them?
Well, yes, it would. Kind of keep in mind, though, that if you're actually going to be spraying fruit trees, that you're going to be a product. The 8 will kill off the Japanese beetle, but like more of an organic spray, like a fruit tree spray, might be better if you're spraying it on apple trees or cherry trees. When you say the cherry tree, is that an edible cherry?
Yes, but they're all gone.
The cherries are all gone. Okay.
The birds have gotten them all, or they were full of fungus because of all the rain. So
Okay, well then you could spray the 8 on the cherry tree, but I would use more of a fruit tree spray on any apple trees. Just again, if you're planning on eating them. Now, if you're leaving them for the deer, obviously you don't have to worry about that then. And the 8 will definitely do a good job on Japanese beetle. So, and you should take care of it, because if you're seeing them on the cherry tree, they're probably moving towards the apples real soon too.
yeah, well, we don't have any. We just have a cherry tree in our backyard, and I noticed it yesterday, and I noticed them on some of the rosebuds too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have their favorites, but if their favorite isn't there, they go to their second and their third favorites.
And anything they can get their munchies on.
Yeah. But yeah, I would spray those as soon as possible. Today would be a great day actually for spraying. We got lower humidities, moderate temperatures, not really much, if any, breeze. So it'd be a real good day to be applying any insecticides or fungicides or anything like that. Mm-hmm.
So my pump sprayer will work with that. Will that work with a hose end sprayer, which will probably reach farther? They don't have to climb so far up the ladder.
Well, the hose end sprayers are always a little more convenient because you don't have to mix, and it does all the thinking for you. But you could use either one, you are going to want to get up as high as possible when you're spraying Japanese beetle, because those tend to get they gravitate towards the top of a tree. So you'll see there's typically more Japanese beetle up in the top than there is to the bottom. So
And then the hose is going to be easier and safer.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good question. Thanks for the call.
Appreciate the phone call, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450 if you'd like to call in to Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Of course, we also take your questions via email, kfizstudio@gmail.com. Might as well get to our first break here. What do you say?
So sounds like a good idea. Rademann's open today. As far as I know, you can still call in for a delivery, but that could change. So I wouldn't wait until 10:30 or 11 if you want a delivery. But 920-922-7612, or stop on out anytime before noon today, 3 miles south of Fond du Lac, east on County B.
KFIZ News Time, 8:26. Got a caller on hold. We're going to get to you in just a bit. This is Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Phone lines are open for your calls and questions, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. You can also email in a question. I see we have one just came in here, kfizstudio@gmail.com. But coming off of that promo right there, I know we want to wish a happy birthday to the birthday boy over there, right?
Yeah, when you call into Jerry and make a request, you can wish him a happy birthday this morning.
85 years young today,
Wonderful.
That fellow is, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still going strong over there, like he has been for I don't know how many years.
40 years he's been doing a radio show.
Wow.
That is
amazing.
What a career, isn't it?
I got a ways to go to catch up to him.
Well, let's go back to the phones. Good morning. You are on Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. What's your question for Ron and Carol?
Ron, I listened to you a couple of weeks ago. I didn't get a chance last week. But you mentioned something about I've got a pretty bushy spirea plant right now, and it's pretty much done flowering. And I think you mentioned that what I should do is cut like the flowering part off on the tip, cut that off. And then you said maybe that probably would rebloom yet this year.
Yeah, spireas work well if you can trim them off, trim those dead flower tips off here, in the early mid part of July, right after they finish flowering.
Yeah.
And so go ahead, trim them off, and then give them a little drink, water them, and that kind of helps. Spireas can handle plenty of water, but if you trim them and you water them right now, you'll get another burst of new growth together with some flowers coming into end of August and September. So, but if you trim them and don't water them, a lot of times it's so dry that you won't get much new growth. So I'd give them a little drink at the same time or once you trim them. But yeah, go ahead and do that as soon as possible now. If
it's kind of bushy, I've got one that's kind of bushy. Is it okay if I would take maybe 6-8 inches off the top and then work on down, and maybe even the ones that really are branching out on the bottom, cut them right off on the bottom, or is that a bad time to do that kind of trimming?
No, you're okay yet right now. Here in mid-July yet. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, go ahead and if you're going to do it that way, thin it out starting at the base first.
Right.
Take 1 or 2 or 3 of those biggest, thickest stems right out of there, and then take another one out at 6 or 8 or 10 inches up, and then shear the tops back from there. And then that'll thin it out a little bit, give it a little more push throughout the entire plant.
Right.
I wouldn't do a real heavy pruning at this time of year. Just 1 or 2 or 3 of those biggest, thickest ones, and then do that. You could do that again in early spring or late fall. Take out more, thin it out more at that time of year.
Right. Okay. Enjoy listening to your show.
But yeah, thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much. Opens up a phone line. Call in now and you get on the air, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. As for that email here, it came with a couple of pictures. I'll show you guys the pictures here after I read the email. This comes in from Carrie. So please see the attached 2 pictures of this wheat horse. Did I pronounce that properly?
I don't know what that is.
Wiethorst. Mini white pine. She purchased it in May of 23. She said, I just noticed within the last week or two, the new growth has turned brown. She says, that doesn't look good. Is this the beginning of the end? I'll look at get the pictures up here for the two of you. There's the one photo, and then there's a little bit of a wider shot.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual. I would, it looks like for some reason or another, and I don't know why that would be just by looking at the picture here, but yeah, those tips do look dead. And so I would trim, cut it back, and you may get some, it may just be more of the tip that's browning up. And it's hard to say what would really cause that.
The color of the whole bush is really light too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it just the way the picture's taken?
Well, it should be a little darker green.
Certainly compared to the other things that we see, it's much lighter green.
Mm-hmm. So I think I would give it a little, like a Miracle Grow with iron or Fertilome out at Rademann's. We have a Fertilome product that has iron and sulfur in it, but it looks like it could be just a little bit deficient in nutrients, because like Carol said, it should be a little bit richer, darker green. And the fertilizing part of it isn't what the problem is on those new tips. That's hard to say. But I probably will do a little investigation of other pine and just see if I see something similar to that, and then we can talk about that next Saturday too. But it's not good for the plant, but I don't think it's going to die. But it is unusual to see those tips burn back like that. So for now, I would just water it and put some water-soluble fertilizer on there, get it to push out a little bit more again, and at least now, of course, the needles that are that are lime green aren't going to instantly turn dark green, but you may get a little more push on some of those lower branches, lower buds, and then get it back to good green health and green needles next year, because it's a little, and it could even be a little bit of an alkalinity issue in the soil. It's planted closer to the foundation, and a lot of times there's limestone that they use for backfill around foundations of homes, and so you have to kind of be alert to that and make sure that your soil pH isn't too high, but that the Fertilome with iron and sulfur will lower the soil pH and add a little iron to it also. So,
are you going to ask them to cut those tips off?
Well, I think what's going to happen is those tips are going to kind of die back, and then you could either pinch them off to the green or trim them off. I think they're going to die back. But like I said, I'm actually going to look at some other white pine or mini white pines like that, and just see if I see something else coming on in others, and then we'll see if we can figure this out.
All right.
Because it is a little bit perplexing, actually, because those tips should be green and growing, not grow out, push out like that, and then die back. So
Ron is on the case. And we're going to go back to the phones. Good morning. You are on Landscape Smart. What's your question for Ron and Carol?
Oh,
hello. You're on.
Yes. We went out to the Rademann's yesterday and spoke to some gentlemen because we're having a problem with our hostas. Something is drilling holes in them. He said he thought it might be the Japanese beetles, but he wasn't sure. And then he said that he didn't know what we should use on it to get them to stop. And we just planted these this year, so it's kind of something that we've wanted for quite a while, and we want to keep them going if we can. So can you give us any idea of what we might purchase to use on them so that they get rid of those stupid little pests?
Well, it sounds like, I would probably, if you're spraying it on the foliage, the insecticide 8 would take care of pretty much any beetle, caterpillar, larvae, and if it is Japanese beetle, that would take care of it too. And the other, if you'll be able to see Japanese beetle, and it wouldn't just show up on hostas. It would be probably showing up in other plants if it's Japanese beetle. Where are you? Are you in the Fond du Lac area? Or?
Yes, we're right in the 4th Street area. In town. So.
Yeah, and I would say typically Japanese beetle is found more in outlying areas. We don't see Japanese beetle much in, I'm going to say, the center parts of town. You have to get out, it's more of a problem as you get out in the Holy Land area or out in St. Peter, Mount Calvary, or Oakfield, or Lemira, and stretching out that way, or some of the better sandier, loamy soils towards Rosendale and Ripon. But in our Fond du Lac clay, we don't have as much of a problem with Japanese beetle. So I doubt that it's Japanese beetle. Just based on your location more than anything. But like the insecticide 8 would take care of any problem if it's still there. Now the other problem that you may or may not have is if any insect that was there a month ago and chewed those holes, if they're no longer there, you're not going to be able to, there's nothing to kill. So kind of keep an eye on them. If they're freshly or newly planted, water them and look at their new growth. And if the new growth is coming out without holes in it or without problems, then the problem is probably gone. Because a lot of times by the time you see the problem, it's there and gone. So watch for the new growth, watch for the new tips. And if the new tips are clean, then you don't really need to spray anything. But if you see the new growth coming out, and this holds true in hostas or any plants, if you see the holes developing in the new tips, the new growth, then you've got the problem is still there. And it would be an insect, and I would use the insecticide 8 on it at this time of year. But the problem may have been there a month ago already, or 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I just noticed that, like this last week, we kind of looked at them because when we got them, they were just like maybe a 6-inch plant. And when we planted them the next week already, they were like 3 times the size what we planted them at.
Yeah.
And I was happy because I love hospice. But when we went out and looked the other day, I saw all these holes in it. And it's like, wow, what the heck happened? It looks like somebody took some bleach or something and put it on a paintbrush and just blew it on there. It was just so weird. And I haven't seen anything crawling on them, but ants, well,
we did see little black dots, maybe the size of the head of a pin,
crawling on the plants.
Yeah, and it doesn't always matter so much what type of insect it is. The insecticide 8 takes care of pretty much everything. It would have to be a rather unusual insect for it to not work. So that would be the one to use. If you're tech savvy enough or quick enough, because you have to do it real soon, you could take a picture of them and email it to us also here, and then I could see a little bit better too. So
Okay.
So if
Well,
you're-
I did take I did take pictures, and he did suggest that I send it to you.
Okay.
He did give me your phone number, but I don't remember what I did with it.
well, you could, if you want to just email it to us right here on the show right now, we could look at it real quick too.
Yeah, the email address
Okay.
is kfizstudio@gmail.com. Again, that's kfizstudio@gmail.com. If you want to send that over while we're doing the
All
show,
right.
then they can review it and let you know what it is
right.
before we end the program.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of it. At this time of year, if you're kind of watching your garden, and you have to be alert to the fact that if the problem was a month ago already, a lot of times you don't see the insects or the insect. You see the holes now, but if you don't see the insects, well, they're probably there and gone.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Let's take our next break, and then we do have 2 emails waiting for us. So that seems to be
Wow.
a hot way for people to get in touch with us as well.
Well, pictures are worth 1,000 words.
They are.
So, okay. So, yeah, Rademann's is open today. You can stop on out before noon today. We're just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac. Take Highway 41 or Highway 175 south out of Fond du Lac, north out of Lemira, and we're just east on County B by a quarter mile right there at the crest of the hill.
KFIZ News Time, 8:44. It's Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Ron Rademann and Master Gardener Carol are in studio here to answer your questions. Call in now, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. We do have a couple of emails to get to. First is Lori. She says, I remember hearing the trimming and shaping of evergreens is supposed to take place around July 4th. Is there still time to do this, or is it too late?
No, you're still okay yet right now. And we kind of I like to work off of holidays just because it seems like it's easier to remember if we say July 4th rather than July 1st, then you could think, well, was it June 1st or July 1st? But if you remember 4th of July, but yeah, you're okay here yet. I would say throughout the month of July. Once you get into August, again, when you do trimming, you're promoting, some regrowth 2 or 3 or 4 weeks down the road. So if you're trimming here right now and they're still pushing out new growth in August, that's fine. If they're pushing out new growth in the middle of September, it's not necessarily good. But yeah, go ahead and trim yet right now. I would try and do it here yet, though, in the next week or so, and then let it go from there. So yes, you're still okay trimming any evergreens or pretty much anything, any plants right now here yet. So it's actually a real good time.
It is.
Our next emailed question to kfizstudio@gmail.com is from Deb. It's in regards to green peppers. She asks, why aren't my green peppers doing well this year? They are very short and do have a few blossoms on them. The variety is California Wonder. I've had lots of luck growing them other years. What can I do?
I have had lots of luck with those other years as well, but not this year.
So you can relate.
Mine are puny. The plants are. The one plant honestly has a pepper on it that's larger than the plant. I think it had to do with our cooler temperatures earlier and all that rain. Peppers like to be put in the ground when it's warm, hot. They weren't this year because you could only keep them in the pot so long. The ones at the garden for Junior Master Gardeners look the same way. So I think it's just what the temperature was when they were put in the ground, and they just didn't start out very well. Other than that, I don't know what to say about it.
Well, and it's kind of always, early springs are good for some plants and bad for
Absolutely.
others. a cooler, wetter spring is better for some plants and worse for others. It might just be the fact that we haven't had the heat yet this summer.
I think the tomatoes, up until a week or so ago, I would have said the same thing about my tomatoes. They just looked like they were struggling, and now they're just looking very, very vigorous. So
maybe they'll kick in here.
I think
even
so.
These
If we
peppers.
get some heat, even if you get some, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably wouldn't hurt. I thought about picking some of the peppers off because I do have peppers on, and peppers can be picked at any time. The size doesn't really matter. Maybe the plant would get a little more invigorated if you took the peppers that are on there now off and
Get a
started
little
over
better
again.
push
Give it a
again.
push, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably
Mm-hmm.
the best hint or
It would
tip.
help.
Let's just call it. If there's less, if they're putting less energy into the current peppers, you'd get a better push on the out of the foliage, and then if you get a stronger, healthier plant, you'll get more peppers.
Right.
Because it's still early enough in the season.
Oh, it is. Peppers
So-
will go well into fall, if they could get a little bit more vigorous here.
Especially if she's, if they're putting a lot of energy into the peppers. Mm-hmm.
And our next emailed question is, I have not been able to find the fungicide Captain. Is there a good replacement?
Well, the chemical companies, they kind of move, they move with the times too, and sometimes it's the same product, but it has a different label, a different name on it. So if you had good luck with certain ones, you always like to stick with them. But for the most part, the newer fungicides are probably better than the older ones anyway. So if you can't find a certain one, just about any of these newer fungicides is probably as good or better than Captan was. So, we have a couple of different ones out at Rademann's. It's more depending on if you like to use a hose end sprayer, if you like to mix your own. But for the most part, those fungicides are all pretty much the same, or they have the same blend of active ingredients. So I would just, go ahead and pick your fungicides based on the convenience of yourself, whatever you like doing. If you like using the hose end sprayers, pick it out for that reason. If you like mixing your own, depending on what, everybody's yard or situation's a little bit different. So whatever you're used to, that's the best way to do it.
Okay.
But yeah, don't fall in love with certain name brands, because they rebrand them all the time. So, and it's probably, if you'd find a label off your old Captan, it probably has the same as any of these other fungicides that you're currently using.
I was going to mention that too, that if you look at your old label, you should be able to match that.
Mm-hmm.
Great advice.
Because companies go out of business and come back too. So, yes.
Well, and it's part of it is the society we live in, and the different people that are, trying to take advantage of the system and creating lawsuits where there should or shouldn't be. And that's a matter of personal opinion. We won't get into all that, but the chemical companies have to be, if we want them to stay in business and have that option, at least, you have the option yourself of using the different ones, but so anyway, they reformulate them a little bit and try to, try to make them safer at the same time too. So a lot of times, some of those old fungicides were more volatile, more dangerous, and so that's why they reformulated them, with a different chemical in there to make them safer. So.
Then we had a woman call in, gave us the question off the air, and she asked or said, I use systemic houseplant insect control. How will I know it's not going to hurt the pollinators? And I know that left the two of you with more questions than answers.
Yes.
So if she is still listening and you want to call back in, we don't mind that you got a crackly phone because they've got a couple of follow-up questions. If you want to call back in, 923-1450, go ahead.
It did say houseplants, correct?
It does, yes. Systemic houseplant insect control.
So if she's worried about pollinators, obviously those houseplants are now outside. So unless you're putting some kind of chemical on those houseplants, I don't know how they can harm the pollinators. What would you say, Ron?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem, especially, I mean, typically houseplants, now, we're kind of assuming she's applying this on houseplants because it's a houseplant systemic.
Right.
And I don't know that those would be, are they pollinating or are they're flowering, so there's pollen there that they're...
So we got a call. We'll see. Is this you?
Yes, my phone sounds a little bit better now.
There we go.
Yes, it does.
Yay! Anyways, yes, I put it on the around the rose bush. And with being systemic, it takes it up from the roots and then puts it up to the rest of the plant. And so I do have other plants around this rose bush. What do I have? Lavender and cat mint. And so the bees just seem to love them. And then I watched a program about bees and them, they're not going extinct, but having problems. And I'm like, oh, did I just do something to hurt the pollinators?
Well, for the most part, a systemic, that's going into the foliage and it's protecting the plant that way. So as far as that, that systemic insecticide actually getting into the pollen, on the plant, I don't know. That might be a tough nut to crack. I don't know that you can solve all the world's problems. If you want a good healthy rose, you better use something systemic on it.
Yes.
And I don't know that it would really affect nearby lavender.
Or the pollinators, for that matter,
No.
either. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Because this was a show, like from, what is that, the public television or something like that. And it was called One Last Bee. And one thing they mentioned was the systemic that they use on the crops and stuff like that.
Oh,
and I'm like, I used that on my rose bush. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, well, and maybe that's a good, some of these commercial, insecticides that they use in farming operations those are stronger, tougher, more. I think it's going to be a lot more potent than anything that you would use around a rose bush.
Good point. I heard that and I'm like, oh crumbs. So I think you're right. Okay, that sounds. I can salve my conscience with that. That sounds good.
Okay.
Sure.
Good.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, it's always kind of a, there's a tough balancing act there. And if you're applying if you're spraying an insecticide on your plants, well, you can spray it before they flower or after they flower. When you're using a systemic, it's in there, all the time. But it's not as potent. Systemics that you're putting into the root system, I don't think it would be.
I don't think it would be either, especially compared to spraying something on the whole outside of the plant when it's in bloom and the pollinators would be coming. That's where I think the real issue would be.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're eating, and you have other things that are eating the leaves, but no, I don't really think it would.
No. So that's, I don't know if that's 100% accurate. We'll
see.
I don't know that we'll ever find out either.
Well, maybe
you're going to get
somebody will call
different.
and tell us. Then we'll know.
Yeah, but I don't know what would be how could you do it actually? How would you know for sure there either?
Right.
So.
Great question.
They're all good questions.
Yeah.
Really good.
We've got just 2 minutes left here, so.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So what do we talk about with that then with 2 minutes? I don't have anything that the Master Gardeners are doing to talk about, so it's just moving on. That's it.
Yeah.
The whole summer is just moving so fast.
It always
seems.
does, right?
Yes. All of our glory time.
Well, let's, we are at, I kind of touched on it earlier, so if we have one more minute, one of the questions is, now is a good time to transplant evergreens. So if you've got a blue spruce in your yard, pines, anything like that, firs, we're kind of just getting started with, we transplanted some Colorado spruce, some blue spruce this week. It's a little early yet on some of the other varieties. Firs, it's a little bit early yet, but it's coming up real quick. Into August, we'll definitely start doing those and some of the pines and all that. So if you want to move something around in your yard, give us a call now, and we'll get that on the schedule, because actually we do fill up rather quickly, because the best window to transplant evergreens here is from now through the month of August. So that, and depending on conditions, we aren't able to transplant every single day. So yeah, if you've got something there that you want to move around, let us know soon.
It's a good time to be planting them as well, right? If they're buying a new one.
Yeah, a great time to be planting evergreens. They're done growing for this year, but they put their energy into their root systems rather than trying to grow at the same time as grow roots and grow new tops. So yes, good point,
It always
Carol.
seems odd to me to do that, but I know that's the time you're supposed to do that, is plant those new ones. Yes.
So yeah, Rademann's open today until noon, Monday through Friday till 4:30, just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac, east on County B.